Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Welcome to this week's edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan, brief conversations with people I find fascinating. Today's very special guest is Sergeant Aquilino Gonell. He is an immigrant, an author, a patriot, a veteran, a dad, and a spouse, and just the greatest guy. And so, Sergeant Gonell, thank you so much for taking time to chat today.
Thanks you for having me in your show.
Absolutely. So there's so much to cover, and we're going to get to the awful parts in a little bit, but let's start with your childhood in the Dominican Republic. What was it like? Tell me about your family and your time there.
Well, I grew up in the Dominican Republic, and like you said, in a farm. At that time was I used to live with my grandparents, and depending on the season, the raining season, I'll be shift from one place to another, yank out of school, in order to plant the and harvest the crops.
And you came to the US at what age and how?
I came to United States when I was 12 years old. My father at that time, he petitioned for me. It took him about, I think, 2 years to get done. Back then, it used to be a lot easier. But he'd been here since 1983. So it was time for us to meet up and get our family together.
Yes. Tell us about your very first trip to the US Capitol.
Oh boy. I was trying to actually skip class to and following as I speak about it in my book, American Shield. The I had a girlfriend at that time that I was kind of like courting, and that kind of led me to join a group of students that were on a field trip. And also, I was following the direction of my high school counselor, who happened to be helping me turn things around in terms of my grades and simulation. But I found that the most motivating factor of that was the girl that I was courting at that time.
Yeah. And you were in New York, and this was coming down to Washington, D.C.
That is correct. That is correct.
And so you met someone there.
Yeah. I mean, not at the Capitol, but in high school, and we were kind of like the first love, I guess, at that time.
Right,
And so everything is kind of like also innocent and things like
right.
that, and learning. So that was pretty good.
So you met a Capitol police officer.
Yes.
Tell us that story.
Oh, that I thought you meant the girl.
Yeah,
Well, the sorry, little levity.
all
um,
good.
the when I first came to the Capitol, I met this officer at that time. I don't remember his name, but I know he was well presented. He treated me and my girlfriend at that time courteous and respectful.
Hmm.
So I kind of like took that hint that perhaps in the future I will come back and be a police officer.
Didn't he say that? Didn't he say maybe you'll come back sometime?
At the end of my tour, I enter on one entrance of the Capitol. At that time, used to be widely open for the public.
Yes.
And then at the end of that my tour, I ended up coming out of the lower West Terrace entrance, which is the same entrance where two things happen.
We're going to get to that.
The
Yes.
first one is where the president comes out and gets sworn in, and also where I did uh, a last stand protecting the Capitol on January 6th.
So speaking of tour, you did a tour of duty and you served in the military. Tell us just a little bit about your time in Iraq.
Uh, my time in Iraq, that was eventful. I normally try to speak about it in jest. My overextended summer camp. All thanks to my dear friend Uncle George Bush. But no, in all seriousness, I did what I was setting out for. I did my duty, whether I like the war, was I in favor of the war or not. I knew that I was still supposed to be following the commander in chief, which
Right.
it was George Bush. So I support every effort that came my way to and do it right. While I was there, I got to be deployed with a good unit, a quartermaster unit. We had detachments throughout the country. At one point we had a group of soldiers in Abu Ghraib, the infamous, notorious prison in
Mm.
Baghdad. Then we also have a few detachments somewhere else, and also we were at the main hub of where LSA Anaconda, that's where most of the Allied forces and U.S. forces were concentrated.
So I had not ever heard it called, I've heard it called Abu Ghraib.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. So that must be the local. So you became a citizen, and it was because of a program called Military Accessions Vital to National Interest, MAVNI, which has now been stopped. The program no longer exists. Talk about why you wanted to become a citizen and whether you had challenges with that.
Well, when I first joined the military, I was not a U.S. citizen.
Right.
The only thing even looking back a few years ago, I went back and looked at my contract. It says if you want to continue your military career, then you need to become a U.S. citizen in 8 years. Um, I I did became a U.S. citizen in 2001 before the war, so I didn't. Perhaps I was not benefiting from that program, but the mere fact that my family was
Yes.
becoming a USA citizen, the first one, my mom, then my brother myself, and then my dad, that helped me grow up, and I exercised my and open up a lot of opportunity. And I exercised the first time I used my voting rights was from the combat zone in Iraq.
Mm. Mm.
So that kind of like put things in perspective. And while I was there, because I helped my mom get her citizenship and
Yes.
filling out the documents, then I helped other uh, soldiers who were in the
Yes.
process of that were not citizen,
Yes.
and help them, and so they were sworn in Baghdad in the Green Zone, in one of the Saddam Hussein uh,
Mhm.
uh, castles or palace.
Amazing. So then you came back and you became a Capitol Hill police officer. And January 6th, 2021, was just a horrific day. We knew
Yeah.
that we knew about the protests. We knew that President Trump had encouraged people to come to Washington. It's going to be wild. We knew that there were going to be protests. What were your expectations for January 6, 2021? And then tell us about the horror of what happened.
I came back from Iraq and I became a police officer for like a year later. I applied to different department, and eventually I ended up being reminded that I took the test for Capitol Police. So I called them. They finded my score, and then within a week I was in basic training. And ever since that time, I work as a police officer. For the most part, doing hundreds of demonstrations, and at no point in time did I ever got assaulted by anybody as a police officer. On January 6th, the expectations were no difference. Because we had done these type of First Amendment demonstration,
Mhm.
protection, securing the perimeter. Uh, we
The
plan
perimeter of the U.S. Capitol
the
building.
U.S. Capitol, yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we planned the same. At that time, we would plan every single event the same, some
Mm-hmm.
large, some small, but the preparation is still the same, and the logistics as well. It just the what we failed to imagine was that one, the former president was invoking these people to the Capitol, and two, the once the violence began, then he sat on his butt and didn't do anything to help us.
Mm.
We are 16 blocks away from the Capitol is 16 blocks away from the White House, probably about a mile and a half or two tops. And this was in broad daylight, so it was not like in the middle of the night you had to wake him up. He was
Right.
working the whole time.
Right.
So how do we prepare for January 6th? The same way we prepare for any other First Amendment demonstration. And we did it thinking that nothing was going to be happening in the way he did.
Right.
Especially
So
because,
when could you tell that this was going to be different?
probably right after Rudy Giuliani and was calling for trial by combat, and then Senator Ron Johnson said, I'm sorry, I forgot what he said, but he said something that incited the crowd. Even when he said those things, he was wearing a bulletproof jacket underneath his winter jacket because he was afraid that the people in the in the crowd in the rally had weapons and that he might get killed.
So you were
Then,
there.
and then you have Donald Trump saying you had to go to the Capitol
Right.
and fight like hell. And if we don't fight like hell, then we're not going to have a country anymore. Fighting like hell, they did. So there was no plan on his part or intention on his part to stop the fighting, stop the mob.
Right.
Instead, he egged them to continue fighting. And I realized that looking back in the timeline of things, when he actually mustered the courage because all the people told him to say something, when he did, he told them that he loved them, to go home. And that's when the fighting, the most fierce fighting, happened in the tunnel.
So
that's where I was.
So that's afterwards. And
Yes.
I do not want to make you go through this again. So, but are there one or two stories you might want to share just to give people a sense of your experience?
I began my day leaving home at 5 o'clock. I got to
In the morning.
the morning. I got to the Capitol around 6:10. And from that time on, I didn't come back home until 4 a.m. the next day on January 7th to be back at work on January 8th at 8 o'clock. So my day was long, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. Because what I did on January 6th, I sustained multiple injuries. Two of the most severe ones that I received sustained. One was my right foot. I ended up requiring bone fusion surgery to remedy the damage that I have in that foot. And then on my left
And
shoulder.
just to be clear, how did you hurt your foot? Did you trip and fall? Did someone step on your foot by accident?
No. That was part of my efforts in terms of inside the tunnel to prevent the hip hop movement inside the tunnel from gaining entry in the Capitol. There was a speaker thrown at us, the police officer. It hit somebody, one of the riders, in the head, and then when he landed on my foot. Then I couldn't leave the area because I had the mob in front of me and the police officer behind me, and I had to be there because there was no reinforcement coming to our aid. And perhaps because I put a lot of weight on it, that also aggravated. But I continued to do my job, injured, onto the point that later on, another rider I was helping an officer who had fallen on the ground, and I tried to help him. And when I did that, there was a rider by the mouth of the tunnel, working around, like kind of like waiting for a pray, and he waited until I was distracted trying to help my colleague, and he grabbed my shoulder strap, putting my shoulder in an awkward motion,
Mm-hmm.
pulling my shield at the same time. Then other riders fell on top of him, so I ended up dislocating my breaking my tearing my rotator cuff, my bicep, and labrum tear. Those are the most severe ones.
Yes.
I also had contusions, lacerations throughout my body, bruises. And one thing that I got to tell you and your audience is Michael Fanon relieved me. That was almost 2 hours after that we lost the police line. And I don't think I'll be here telling you this story had it not been because Michael Fanon relieved me. And at that time, I didn't know who he was. All I knew was that I needed to use the bathroom, and he came and relieved me. Within 3 or 4 minutes that I went to the bathroom and came back, he was already dragged out into the mob.
So I'm just going to pause for 1 second. So viewers may remember Michael Fanon from also being on the congressional witness table for the January 6th congressional hearings. He was the one with tattoos down his neck. He was memorable with his beard and stuff. And he also wrote a book, but we are getting to your book, Sergeant, in a minute. 1 in 4 veterans have PTSD. You were talking about your physical injuries, but you also have PTSD from this horrible, horrible day, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I have PTSD initially from my service in Iraq.
Yes.
Near.
Sorry, you know what? I shouldn't have used the acronym. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So I was, exposed to explosions and things like that, indirect firing. So I got that trauma from the war, and then only to be aggravated here on January 6th by our own citizen, by people who claim to support the police, people who, back the blue. Meanwhile, they are beating me and my colleagues with the same flagpoles with the flag on it. So what I do had the PTSD and was aggravated. So I had 2 different conflating symptoms, traumas, which makes it even harder. And not only those, the PTSD, but you also have to take a look at, consider the moral injury as well, because at the end of the day, we did what we supposed to. We kept our oath, and some of the very same people who we risk our lives for turn around and say nothing happened. If it did happen, then it's not as severe or dangerous as you say it did. But nothing happened to who? To them,
right?
Running away with their lives. Meanwhile, we run the most of it.
Yes.
And that's.
And when you're talking about those people, you're talking about generally members of Congress, right? Senators and members of Congress. So
and also the former president himself. I mean, he calls them tourists, peaceful protesters, patriots, hostages, and the latest one, warriors. So which one is it? Are they heroes? Because hostages are, as victims,
right?
Heroes is warriors to him. And if those people are those things, then who are we, the police officers, to them?
So tell me, if you would, how did you explain all this to your young son? How did you teach him about it while being honest and also not too scary?
It took me a while to get around that. I guess if you are a parent, we always try to shield our kids from certain things, especially when they are painful. So for the most part, we didn't talk to him about it. He knew that something bad happened to me, but he didn't understand why. And for us, almost a year, we didn't talk to him about it. But then in school, we knew that he was struggling. And because we were trying to shield him from anything out on the outside, we didn't even tell the school who was I. And my son had some learning disparity at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not until the end of the school year when the school, one of the school teacher put the 1 and 1 together with the
Mm.
last name. And then we would tell, well, how come you didn't say anything? We could have had help. I'm like, well, we
Mm.
didn't call the attention to him or
Yes.
make you feel like he needs special treatment because he doesn't. He just he was struggling.
Yes.
So one day I took a walk with him and our dog and on the trail, and I asked him, "Do you really understand what happened to me?" He said, "No." So I explained to him
Mm.
and I said to him, "Look, it's just like basketball when you get upset because you didn't win. Some people take it of heart and they don't know how to lose. If you don't win something, if you don't put enough effort to it, and you don't win, that means you got to try harder next time, not to
Mm-hmm.
destroy the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Don't blame nobody else if you didn't prepare for it."
Right.
So some adults had to learn that as well, and that's why I said Trump needs to learn that.
Amen. So you talked about being a shield and shielding your son. So it is time to talk about your magnificent book. I'm holding it up here. It's called American Shield. It is available in English and in Spanish, and it is an extraordinary read. As I've told you, I have now read 6 books about January 6th because I just think it's such an important part of American history. And your book is so beautiful, and it tells the immigrant story all the way through January 6th and beyond. Tell us, if you would, how hard was it to write? How hard was it to revisit all that and share your journey?
It was very hard. I didn't write it just myself. I had to get a co-writer, a ghostwriter, because I was still dealing with my trauma.
Yes.
But part of the reason why I did the book, at first, when I first some was suggested that about writing it, I said I don't even have enough information about
Mm.
writing a book. So I'm like, and then I started listening to, especially after my testimony to the January 6th committee, you had
Mm-hmm.
a far right painting me as a left wing, whatever, uh,
Mm.
as somebody who is just seeking attention, but they don't know that I already had spent 8 years in the military. They don't know that I had gone to war for this country. They don't know
Mm-hmm.
that I was struggling middle class or, a poor kid early on. So that I was an immigrant,
Yeah.
that I was a police officer before that. So there's a lot of sacrifices, a lot of things that I wanted my people to know my story on my own
Yes.
accord.
Yes.
Now they hear from somebody that never talked to me or never interviewed me,
Right.
and that's part of what the book is. Is as a somebody who immigrated, um, somebody who learned the culture, somebody who assimilated, somebody who got an education, somebody who swore enough to protect this country, go overseas in the military, become a veteran, and continue his service as a police
Yes.
officer, and then find myself in the Capitol protecting all kinds of people, elected official, influence,
Yes.
dignitary, including the Pope and the justices from the Supreme Court, court, and only to be painted as somebody radical. And
Yes.
like, these people need to know my story, because if I don't tell my story, then they're going to paint me as somebody that I'm not.
Yes. So President Biden recognized you and some of the other police officers and leaders with a presidential medal. You've also gotten other awards. Tell me what that recognition means to you, and which ones really stand out for you as most powerful, most gratifying.
Well, I was very humble when they notified me that that was going to happen. I did what I did, not looking for a medal or an award or recognition. I did what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
Have a lot of medals from my time in Iraq and in the military. So, did I seek them? No. Did I welcome it? Yes. But I did what I was supposed to, and if other people will think that I deserve something, I'm not gonna say no. And that presidential medal from the president. It means a lot.
Yes.
Because no Republican, with the exception of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, has sat down with us to learn about exactly our sacrifices on January 6th. And that was incredibly that from the party of law and order, quote unquote, we hit crickets.
Yes.
And that was very humble of me, my family, my relatives, my parents. They're all proud of what I had done. I also received the gold medal from the Speaker Pelosi,
Yes.
117 Congress,
Mhm.
among others. I did those things not because I wanted a medal. I did it because it was my job, it was my duty. If I was to be put in the same situation, I would have done the same thing, regardless of who was attacking the Capitol.
So you have provided public service as in the military, as a Capitol Hill police officer. Once you feel like you're physically and emotionally ready for it, do you have a vision of another kind of public service?
I had contemplated, but politically, I don't think I will. I'm not going to say never because you never say never.
Okay.
I do have the criteria and the accolades and all the records to run if I choose to. But at this moment, my focus is try to hold those people who assaulted me
Yes.
accountable. Just last week, one of those individuals received 20 years. And I attest to what he
When you
did.
say one of those individuals, you're talking about one of the
One of the writers.
insurrectionists, one of the
One of-
attackers.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I was attacked by more than 40 people. That was probably like 23 or 24 on my list. But these are people who attack me physically now. So those I continue to go to the court,
Good.
attest what they did to me, speak to the judges, to the FBI, to the prosecutors, and to the media too.
Yes.
Because that political rhetoric, violent political rhetoric that we've seen over the past few years is a contribution of what led to January 6th.
Yep.
And I joined Courage for America, which is a organization that helped me put my experience into use, and also other people learn from that. And we're doing everything we can to hold them, prevent another January 6th.
So we're in an election year right now, and former President Donald Trump has made it clear that he would pardon some of these folks. He calls them heroes. He calls them innocent. What do you say to that? Some of those who have been convicted, who've been arrested and yes, investigated by the FBI, and brought to justice, brought to trial. What do you say?
Well, these are people who he could call them all he wants, whatever he wants to. It doesn't change the fact that these are people, convicted criminals, people who have been going through the court system. They have been judged by the judge, by the court, by their peers, and found guilty, have been found guilty of so many different felonies. But it doesn't surprise me that the person who incited the mob pointed them to where to go,
Right.
and wanted to join the mob when that was happening, is actually defending them. That's one more reason for me to continue to be outspoken about it, to do everything I can to tell people what happened, because you don't support the police, you don't support law and order or the rule of law if you are supporting somebody who is a criminal, somebody
Yes.
who's a convicted felon, somebody who has 92 counts of criminal charges on it. So when he says he's going to pardon him, he's just projecting that he's running for his own political life, because he knows that if he doesn't win, he's going to go to jail. And there's no platform for what he says.
Yes.
Just running on January 6th, I was cheated, and immigration. Everything is.
Well, that's actually exactly what my next question was going to be. Immigration has become a major issue that Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, and the Republicans have used. You are an immigrant. You are a success story. You are a proud American. What do you say to immigration as a political issue?
Well, it's remarkable that they continue to use that. They only use it every 4 years or every 2 years when there's an election.
Mhm.
They focus on the caravan. I'm like, the only caravan or mob that I'm worried about is the one that attacked me at the Capitol, January 6th.
Yeah.
I mean, so it used to be. I'm old enough to remember that Republicans, when they were faced with immigration reform, they chose not to do it because they wanted, and their excuse was, we want somebody who come to this country legally.
Hmm.
I check.
Hmm.
Somebody who come and assimilate, check this guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Somebody who joined the military, check this guy. Somebody who get an education, check this guy. Somebody who go and fight for this country,
Yeah.
check this
Yeah.
guy. Somebody who return and actually is a contributing member of society, check
Yep.
this guy by joining the police. And then somebody who protect the Capitol.
Yes.
This guy right here.
Right.
Ask me how many of them have called me to say, hey, I'm sorry, we would like to speak to you.
Yes.
Zero. I have met each and every criteria of the check boxes.
Mm.
And to this day, they don't want to hear from me. They want to,
Mhm.
I'm a poster child for
Mhm.
immigration, for the reason why to do, or the type of immigrant that they say,
Yes.
used to say that they want. Now they don't want anything.
Right.
So for me, that the issue of immigration, that they use it as a political pawn, just like they say they back the blue and all that. They use us as a political pawn. They don't have no, as a matter of fact, in the Senate, they just kill the bipartisan
I know.
immigration reform bill that Langsford would put into place. Is the most conservative legislation regarding immigration reform, and they blocked it because they wanted to use it as a political issue. It's very incredible.
So I want to start to wrap up. Uh, First off, I want to show everybody the challenge coin that you gave me of the US Capitol Police here on the other side. So beautiful. And this just made me cry. And I don't know whether it's going to be that visible, but you gave me, it's a tiny, for people who are listening on Apple Podcasts, it's a tiny Ziploc bag, teeny tiny bag with some pieces of glass and stuff. And it's from the shattered door of the Capitol when you were attacked. And I have kept them both close to me in honoring you and keeping you and your heroism close to my heart. So I want to thank you again for both of those. Before we get ready to shift to the Fast Five and wrap up, is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share with my viewers?
Um, that small bag with the glass, it's very emotional for me.
Yes.
Just looking at it, I kind of like get the chicken skin
Mm-hmm.
um
Goosebumps.
goosebumps,
Yeah.
because it brings a lot of memory. That's first door that they breach at the west front, the insane entrance where I and my colleagues risked our life defending, where we spent almost 4 hours and a half fighting, not just in a tug of war, but actually uh close close hand to hand fighting.
Combat. Mm-hmm.
And people, regardless of your political views, I had to ask you this. If you think that what happened at the Capitol where I was, you got to see the video. I just posted something on X. Is a 30-minute uh link to YouTube video of me, of my day, part of my day, not everything, part of my, it's 30 minutes with some transcript and explanation and identification. So if you want to see part of my day, how peaceful, or how
Yes.
many hugs and kisses
Yeah.
was I
And
given,
tourists, don't forget they were
how
tourists.
many tourists or how
Yes.
many warriors or how many hostages were
Unbelievable.
attacking me on that day,
Mm.
or being very friendly to me and my colleagues, then watch
Mm.
that, because it will show you part of my day. And I'm only one of the many hundreds of officers who were
Yeah.
visually attack on that day.
Yes. So at the end of this, we're going to have all of your social media links, so people can definitely check you out on X, formerly Twitter. So closing question before we go to Fast Five. You used to think of America as a place of hope, for you. What do you think of it? How do you think of it now?
It gives me hope that we have, for a moment right after January 6th, in my beliefs and my confidence of what this country to me meant, it was down, it tanked.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, by witnessing and holding people accountable in courts, the justice system slowly gave me some confidence. And now that we have Kamala Harris at the forefront of the Democratic ticket, I could see light in the tunnel, more
Yes.
vigorous incitement coming from. Not that I was not going to vote again, for Joe Biden. I campaigned for him
Mm-hmm.
because of those things. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Yeah, I know you would say you want to wrap it up, but I'll tell you why. I'm not going to vote for the guy who sent them up to try to kill me.
Right.
And even though I had considered in the past to voting for Republican, I'm not going to vote for the people who back the person who sent them up to kill me.
Right.
There's no way I'm going to do that. I'm not a masochist.
Right.
You know, and nor do I want my life or my colleagues to die next time if there is another January 6th, because that's exactly what they are planning to, another sitting doubts and all that.
Right.
But ultimately, the reason why I joined Kamala Harris and Joe Biden campaign to stand for them is because the Republicans made that decision for me by not backing me and my colleagues.
Yes.
We needed the help, that we needed the support that to condemn that type of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of
Mm-hmm.
condemning it, they condone it, they excuse it, they whitewash
Well said. Well said.
and pretend that nothing really happened. But on January 6th, they were scared to death. And the only reason why they left and escaped was because action that we did, not because the mob stopped out of nowhere and said, "What? Let him go." No, they were fearful. They knew who was to blame. And it's not that they don't know who did it, it's that they don't care because it wasn't them who got hurt.
Right.
And as long as they are the one to be in power, they think that nothing is going to affect them, and they're complicit. But they made that decision for me to clearly, because I was not a political person. I kept my politics to myself and my family.
You are now. You've been campaigning for Kamala Harris, for Vice President Harris, and are going to be sharing your stories and sharing your opinions. So thank you for being an important part of democracy. I wish it hadn't had to be after such there are no words, dreadful, horrible, terrifying. Yeah. All right, we're going to shift, and it is time, Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, it is time for Fast Five. 5 quick questions, 5 quick answers to let folks get to know you better. I'm going to start with a fun one. What is your favorite food that you enjoy from the Dominican Republic?
Rice and peas all together. It's called moro de gandules.
Okay, do you make it here or do you go out for it?
I'm a good cook and I make it myself.
All right. Question number 2. What is the biggest lesson you hope to impart to your son?
He's following some of my steps. He would like to follow my steps. So I'm trying to encourage him to do something, not because I am who I am, but because he actually wants to. So I want him to make the best choices for himself, not living up to my expectations or somebody else's expectations.
Okay. Question number 3. What is the biggest surprise that you've experienced as you've transitioned to being a civilian?
The support, the amount of support that I had gotten from people, that there are those who see me as a hero, then you got some people who see me as a villain. And I just, at the end of the day, I just did my job. And if you think that Donald Trump is going to go into a building on fire to rescue you, you are crazy. I'm more likely to go and do those things than I think if he sees a building on fire, he'll bring a can of gasoline and pour it and then say, beautiful fire,
Yeah.
instead of trying to get you out of the building safely.
Question number 4, how do you manage your mental health? What is something that helps you heal and calm and thrive? Is there
It's a combination. I do. If you look at my first interview 3 years ago, I was a wreck. Dealing with PTSD is not a one-time thing. It's a continued effort to maintain that level of treatment. The way I had done over the years is I go on trail walks. I by the lake, I run, I play basketball now. I'm able to, not like I used to, but at least I'm able to. So that kind of like keeps me sane, keep my symptoms at bay. But there are times that a sound, a video, a picture, comment, bring those things back. When I go to court, even though I sometimes I have to go because I'm providing statement or I'm witnessing somebody who assaulted me, even though I'm not the one being charged per se. He assaulted me, so I provide my statements. Or hearing Mike Johnson or speaking Mike Johnson or Donald Trump saying some of these things, outrageous excuses to condone those behaviors. You know, that's triggering. So when that happens, I just go to the gym. Or walk.
Okay, good plan. So question 5,
or just
Sergeant
drink wine.
Aquilino Gonell. It's the same question I have asked every one of my guests. What is your secret hidden superpower? What is a skill or talent you have, something you're really good at that most folks can't do?
I don't know. That's a tricky question. I don't know if it's lucky enough, but I have find myself staring at the door of death in multiple occasions. And I don't know if it's training, perseverance, or just pure luck. I had found perhaps that I'm surrounded by a shield, and that's part of the book name as well. I'm blessed by my family from, for whatever reason, I keep overcoming a lot of persevering adversities and challenges. So that might be a
resilience. Maybe that's the word. So I really want to pitch again, American Shield. Please buy this book. Please read it. Please share it with friends and family and support an American hero who has helped defend our democracy at great risk and cost to himself. So thank you for watching, Sergeant Gonell. It's such an honor to be able to talk with you again. I look forward to seeing you again very soon and to continuing to try to support your journey. And let's pray like hell and work like as hard as we can for November.
We're doing everything we can to make sure that we don't let this guy back in the office, because if he does, it's going to be a wild ride.
Yes.
I do want to say thank you for having me in your show. If you are able to get the book in Spanish and English, please review it. It's a long way, and tell your friends as well. And I hope to see you guys, you and everybody, your audience, in the near future. Or you probably going to hear a little more soon, hopefully.
A little more, but we're not talking about it here. So
stay tuned. Stay
tuned. Exactly right. Sergeant, thank you so much for your time. I'll see you soon. Take care. Stay well.
Have a good one.